Good morning, fellow champions around the world in the Hero Support Network. Just want to take a few minutes and talk to you today about something that's on my mind regarding bullying, right? The people who are assisting the bully and people who just stand there and watch it happen. And I want to try to explain what's going on for each of those three characters and what you can do in order to avoid becoming like those three characters. So I'm going to start with a fundamental misunderstanding that has occurred at least in the American culture, and maybe around the world. Some of you might have heard of Charles Darwin. He was the founder or creator of the evolutionary theory. And one of the things that he said is, or the people think he said, is that, evolution favors those who are the strongest or fastest, right? Have you ever heard that concept? And unfortunately, this idea has been the basis of a philosophy or a way of thinking, right, that has guided people's actions in business and in administrations and even at home and families and on the playground. Um, it's guided people to believe that they are justified in bullying because whoever is the strongest and can compete with the other guy, push him out of the way, walk over him, shove him down. I'm the one who will live to see tomorrow, right? My offspring will continue to inhabit the earth. Well, in fact, that is a complete misrepresentation of Darwin's idea, right? And you don't have to believe in evolution in order to be affected by this reality that people have been abusing this concept. So the correct interpretation is that what he actually said, it's very clear. He writes that natural selection favors those who are most adapted to change. And what this means is that whoever is willing to change or can handle change when the environment changes will be the one who lives to reproduce, right? And their offspring will survive into the next generation. An example of this is that polar bears have white fur and brown bears have brown fur. And polar bears and brown bears are descended from the very same type of bear. The only difference was the polar bears went into a climate that had white snow, and the brown bears went into a climate that had brown soil everywhere, right? And so their coats of fur adapted throughout time, and that change allowed them to survive in that climate. And so in fact, rather, Darwin's idea doesn't give anyone permission to go out and stomp on the little man, right? What it says is that, and I'm basing my concept on that idea, is that you can learn the kind of knowledge and skills that you'll need in order to manage any situation that arises. And when you can manage any situation that arises in your life, you will be able to adapt yourself and your circumstances in a way that will keep you moving toward your best life, right? Well-being and flourishing. You'll be able to be well and do well in life. So, unfortunately, this philosophy of, dominating the weak, by the strong and stuff, has resulted in a lot of bullying and oppression. And I want you to know that people who are bullying are, whether we like to hear it or not, the reality is they were typically mistreated, abused, traumatized as children, growing up in toxic environments at home, at school, maybe even at work now as adults. And unfortunately, because of that painful experience and their personal choice to ignore that pain that they're experiencing. They put up that wall to their emotions so they don't have to feel anything. They can numb out using drugs and alcohol maybe, and or distractions. And consequently, they kind of unplug from their humanity. And that means they unplug from seeing you as a human too. But what I want you to know is that behind that forcefulness, right? Bullies use force strategies. They take from you what they want rather than earning it by working for it appropriately and giving you the option to say no, right? And still be in a social relationship with you. And so they do this because deep down, bullies fear cooperation with others. They fear co-management, right? They don't want to have teamwork. They don't want to work together because in their experience, when they rely on somebody else, they get screwed over. And so they've developed this competitiveness, right? I mentioned that survival of the fittest, that competitiveness. And these type of social relationships that are based on competition, the strong is justified in dominating the weak. And of course, that is totally against well-being, totally against flourishing. It prevents people from being able to thrive in life. And so you don't want to do that. That's why bullies are screwing themselves over and other people. Second person is the person who assists with the bullying. That's what I call the minion, right? So you've got the villain and the minion. And the minion is allowing themselves to be used as a tool by someone who sees other people as objects or tools, right? Remember I said the bully doesn't see you as a person, they see you as a tool, someone that they can force or use for their own purposes. And so the minion is someone who sees themselves as an object, as a tool, as having no value. And it's for the very same reason as the bully does his or her thing. This person in the minion role also grew up in an oppressive family, in oppressive social school environments, and now they might be in them at work. It's an oppressive cultural home life in which the bully has adapted to that evil toxicity by seeing others as objects, right, and trying to dominate them. And this other person, the minion, is forcing themselves down, not others. They force themselves. And that's why they make this kind of nauseating match, if you've ever seen a person with another person like this. The one person who's doing the dominating and the other person who is okay with it, whether it's being done to them or to someone else, right? So what I want you to know is that the minion, deep down, fears social conflict. And that's because they grew up witnessing domestic violence, witnessing other types of bullying in a situation in which they were powerless, usually because they were a child, and a child cannot stand up against a fully grown adult abuser, right? So they have this misunderstanding that they have no power. And in fact, they have a lot of power, but they don't ever use it. And that's because they're afraid of conflict. They don't want to have a fight with the bully. So the third person is the person I call the sidekick. They're sometimes referred to as a bystander. The bystander just stands there and does nothing. They're hiding in plain sight, hoping that the bully who's bullying someone else won't notice them, won't come after them. And they do this because the sidekick person, right, is a good person, they mean well, but they're afraid of losing their social status, their social position in the group, because they know that if they go and help the guy that's being victimized, the bully is going to target them, because the bully wants for only him or herself to be in charge. Doesn't want to, remember I said the bully doesn't want to share power with others? And so why would the bully allow this other guy to come over here and go against him, what he's trying to do, right? So This is the fundamental conflict that is already occurring by the time this sidekick person is even standing there. What they're misunderstanding is that if they do nothing to intervene, then they're guaranteed to be subject to bullying in the future, because the bully is still there and he's still bullying and no one's doing anything about it. And so here's how you can move from the sidekick to the heroic role: by understanding that you have power and it's your responsibility to give yourself permission to intervene for your own sake and for the sake of those who share the environment with you. Bullying is not allowed and cannot be tolerated. If you're the person who is assisting the bullying because you fear social conflict and you don't want to have to say no to the guy because he might hurt you, you want to learn how to set and enforce appropriate limits with others, because there are some things that are not okay for you to allow to occur, right? And often we have these kind of religious beliefs that tell us that I should love somebody even if they hurt me. I should forgive them and just hang out with them still. No. You cannot allow people to mistreat you if you want to be and do well in life. People who get mistreated don't make it. They commit suicide. They go do alcohol and drug abuse unless they can get through that by becoming a heroic person, right? So, and finally, you can avoid becoming a bully by learning how to trust others, learn how to share power with others, cooperate with others, co-manage with others, whether they be your children or your employees or clients that you work with at your job. Even though you're in a role of authority over them, perhaps, you still have an obligation to treat them with appropriate regard. They have value just the same as you have value. As a human being, as a life form on the planet, you do not have permission to hurt others. And you can increase your odds of living a good life by facilitating win-win outcomes with every decision you make. Try to do the thing that will be good for yourself, for others, and for the environment. All right? Have a great day and a great week.